Oh.
Both types of sports with shoot and tour. Football discussion on the internet.
Yeah, I gotta work that out because usually there's a little warning that they give you at the end of the countdown.
Dukes, the music.
Hit the music, Dukes, now! Greenwall, the lights! The shoe is on the other foot now, Tor.
Both types of sports with shoot and tour. Football discussion on the internet.
I mean, we have the most emo opening in the history of football pod. You think?
Dan's the best. He's just, it's nice. It's just football discussion on the internet. It's not a talking head debate show.
No.
It's not anything that it's not an aggro football discussion. It's talking football on the internet. So I think that intro is just about perfect for what we were looking for.
It's actually the opposite. It's two beta males fucking humping a doorknob. Maybe we should add that to the intro. That's so beautiful. So Dan the drywall man, of course, did the musical part, and then I'm trying to remember the name of Aaron Kenny. Aaron Kenny, my dude, came out to our Hall of Fame game viewing party on Thursday and said, "Do you need anything?" And I said, "I need this."
Both types of sports with shoot and tour. Football discussion on the internet.
You goddamn if he didn't do it. It's pretty great, huh? All right, if you're listening to this, you need to go over to YouTube or to our Twitter, both types sports or wherever, and look at the intro too, because there's a video component, as there must be, Tor. There is no more podcasting. Radio's gone the way of the dodo. Everything's got to be video so that you can see how unattractive the people are that are speaking.
Yeah, it's just the verbal only storytelling and detailing is just about extinct. Every radio station is now equipped with not only the audio producer, but a video producer or a camera lead. And it's some reason all these new jobs aren't open, which is crazy.
Very strange for my guy. Hear my guy out. He'd like to do some production value for you.
He'll live under the staircase like Stalker Patty.
If you see, you're living a post Len Pasquarelli world, Tor, who used to be a columnist that write about the NFL. The Sports Junkies had a big feud with him. But if you saw Len Pasquarelli, you would say, we do not need a video component for these shows for this guy to talk football. I worry about that. I worry for our future. Matt F. said, happy Monday, friendos. Love the Dan intro. I love it too. Welcome to both types of sports NFL discussion and NFL offseason discussion. I am Shude. That is radio's Gigantor, broadcasting live from Red Bank, New Jersey. If you would like to send a super chat, $2 will get you in. We'll put your comment up on the screen. We'll answer your question. If not, we'll just do a show. We're capable of doing that. Good to see you, Gigantor. I heard this. We'll talk a lot of football stuff. The Puka Nacua injury is, I feel like that's pretty big. I know you're down on the Giants. That's an edgy take. And Pat Mahomes, the outrage for the past week that Pat Mahomes is not getting sucked off enough. I've got thoughts, and I also have an example of why I think that people that like football are just as stupid as people that like politics or food videos or anything else. They just live and exist to be angry on the internet, Tor.
I would say so. I would say that NFL fans and just sports fans in general, it doesn't take much to get them fired up, or the most trivial matter in the stands caught on camera will become a viral meme for 12 hours. So it easily entertained bunch, which is fine because I don't consider myself to be someone that entertains the higher brow.
I don't think so either, but they're not that easily entertained because we still here on both types of sports have 1/5 of the Twitter followers as Hack City, which is something that I really sob myself to sleep every night about that. But again, congratulations to you, young Gigantor. Joining us on the program today, scheduled, and he's a man that actually has things to do, so we'll see if it happens. But Santana Moss is supposed to be on the program today, number 89 on the field, number 1 in your hearts, former first-round draft pick, Pro Bowler, and the way that I always described him, Tor, is that when you like a bad team, the guys that are good are way more important than if you like a good team. Because if you're a 49ers fan, it's like, where do I begin? Like, do we start with Trent Williams? Do we start with Christian McCaffrey? And we have the luxury of thinking Brock Purdy sucks. If you are a fan of the Redskins, when Tor and I were, following the team, at least I was a fan. Santana Moss, Chris Cooley, John Jansen. I mean, these are hallowed names because these are guys that played well during some of the most dog water seasons an NFL franchise could turn in.
Yeah, for teams that were just about out of it by the third week of September, to see guys still go out and play their asses off and fight all year like Santana Moss did, it leaves an impact. And maybe one day I grow out of that and I just start being a true evaluator or analyst. But no, there's too much emotion wrapped up in football. Seeing guys go out and actually risk their health. It's a dangerous game. And to do that with an organization that never rewards you and never rewards the fans, it's selfless. And I will always be appreciative of good players on terrible teams.
Santana, really nice guy, tremendous player. And I always forget because I've been out of the game for a while. I was texting with him and I'm like, hey, can you come on? He's like, yeah, I just got to do this thing for the NFL Network. And then the Commanders want me to cut a commercial. And I'm like, oh, right. This is a gentleman that has a lot of irons in the fire. We're working with that out. So we're going to try to be flexible with his schedule, but he should be joining us on the program today. Zach McMenon, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. If you become a member on YouTube, I just go to youtube.com/Chad Duke Show. You can watch all the back episodes of this program. There's a bunch of them up there now. So go check it out if you're interested in that sort of thing. And if not, we part as friends. One last plug, Tor, before we get into the meat of the program. I'm excited for this. Every single 5th of the month on our X account, again, it's at Both Types Sports, we will be giving away a Colt Brennan autographed rookie card every single 5th of the month for the rest of the football season, starting in the preseason. That is August 5th, then September 5th, then October 5th, so on and so forth. Very easy to follow. To win, you don't got to buy nothing. You don't got to pay for nothing. You just got to be following us on X, and you can have a chance to win. I decided also, Tor, that Colt Brennan has a Colt Brennan Foundation, and then I'll be making a donation each 5th as well for that as well, so we can be doing something good. But we're both giant fans of the dude, and I got to know him a little bit, and he's a super nice guy, and I think he was 37 when he passed away, which is terrible. So he's got a charity now that works with, kids and athletics in Hawaii, but also with addiction issues, and it'll be a fun thing for us to do. And I found a whole mess of Colt autograph rookie cards, which this is kind of morbid, but I was talking with our mutual friend Ant-Man, telling me about the 10-year death bubble. And I guess in the sports card industry, 10 years after a guy dies, the shit is inflated, like as far as the value goes of the card. So after 10 years, then it kind of goes back to what it should be. And I was like, that's really morbid. Like that's kind of a strange thing to have be a part of your community. I did not like that. Now, but I encountered it when I went to buy a bunch of Colt Brennan rookie cards, and I was like, well, God bless them. These are fucking pretty valuable here. Like these are more than I thought they're going to be. But yeah, that guy died far too soon.
That's tough to hear the inner workings of that machine. Yeah, that's not good to hear. But I'm glad that, if anything, this show is trying to preserve some good memories about Colt Brennan and keep the
Colt to Colt.
Yep, keep moving that ball up the hill.
That's my guy. Spider Clam says Zach Thomas for him. My Dolphins that I used to, well, of course, Ricky Williams, big one. All the backs, they had some fun backs there, but the Damon Heward, Jay Fiedler years for the Miami Dolphins, one of my favorites. And then I don't know if you can find this, Tor. There's a very famous picture where the Patriots had won a Super Bowl and they had a couple of Dolphins on their team. I think it was Damon Heward or is Jay Fiedler, is one of those two, as backup quarterback, Tom Brady, maybe third string quarterback. They took a picture of them with their Super Bowl rings flicking off the camera. And so it's like these ex-Dolphins that are flicking off the Dolphins because they won a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. And it's a funny picture because I don't think it's two guys that got a lot of playing time from what I remember. But I always they had to leave and go to New England when they won the Super Bowl every year. David Marksbury just became a YouTube member. Thank you so much, David. Enjoy the back catalog. There is boatloads of content up there for you.
I was a big Ronnie Brown Dolphins guy. That was right in the pocket for me. And I also got slightly steamed for Chad Pennington playing for the Dolphins.
Oh,
I think
sure.
he had a year where I don't whenever Chad Pennington was a rookie, that's when I started getting football cards. I remember I had a couple Chad Pennington rookie cards. I said, oh, okay, didn't work out with the Jets. Goes over the Dolphins, has a crazy good season. And he was still my guy. I hadn't been thinking about Chad Pennington for 3 years. And then he pops up and he's carving up teams in Miami. I really like that season for him.
Santana caught touchdown passes from Chad Pennington. I believe I have a fantasy football index publication that has Chad Pennington on the goddamn cover. I believe I still own that. And if I do, I'll pull it out and bring it in here next week. Can you imagine? I mean, he was a hot name for a while. I don't think he was by the time he went down there. Did he run the Wildcat with Dave Sperano? Am I dating myself there?
You might be on it.
Who was the quarterback when they were running the Wildcat down there? And they were my favorite football team. Nobody loved the Wildcat formation more than Chad Dukes. And I think it was just the Eagles and the Dolphins that were running it full time. And everybody else just kind of gave you a whiff of it. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Tor, Ronnie Brown and Cadillac, both from Auburn, both went to the Miami Dolphins during their career, right?
I'm trying to think
he was with Tampa Bay. Now
Cadillac drafted to Tampa. They had Ricky Williams was on that Miami team when they were running that Wildcat also. But 2008 included the quarterbacks were Chad Pennington, Brian Greasy, and Chad Henne.
Oh man, what a three-headed monster! No wonder they ran the Wildcat. I get steamed up. Oh boy, I'll try to find that picture for next week. It might be one that's difficult. I know it just left its mark with me. Charles Cooch, 49 Super Chat. Thank you, brother. Happy Monday, pals. Feel so bad for Patrick Mahomes. It's been at least 22 seconds since someone in the NFL Network called him elite. Unacceptable. No shit. This is my biggest story of the week. I almost called Tor and said, we got to jump on because I got to start screaming about this, but I know he told me to go piss up a rope. Thank you for the Super Chat, Charles. I really appreciate you, but I'm glad you brought this up. So I'm sure everybody knows, you can't be watching this show and not know that they did this NFL, top 100 tour?
Yeah, they've been doing it for, I think, over 10 years now.
And it's the players that vote on this. And they vote the top 100 players in the league. These are their contemporaries, by the way. This is not me and Tor. This is not Mike Tirico. This is not Rich Eisen. This is the guys that are out there popping pads. And they voted top 100, and Patrick Mahomes landed on number 4 on the 2024 list. The top players were Christian McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, and then Pat Mahomes. And I guess what the big stink is that Tyreek Hill landed at number 1, and he was the first wideout in the 14-year history of this list that was able to get that done. So there was this massive meltdown on Twitter. People started losing their minds. It was nonstop fodder the entire weekend. How many different instances, Tor, did you see two guys in weird boxy suits and Air Jordans screaming about this on television?
Yeah, I like seeing a lot of guys with too tight pants and the casual loafer with the rubber bottom yelling about
and the crazy socks and the crazy socks, of course. That's how you prove you're young and relevant still, is you wear those crazy shoes along with some really wacky socks.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's where the clicks and views come in. Yeah, plenty of Mahomes discourse, and I'm not going to accuse the NFL Network of producing it up and saying, all right,
isn't this their list? Don't they come up with this list?
I think it would have been boring to see another Mahomes number 1 for them, so they had to joust him to 4. Regardless, a ton of discourse about Mahomes being at 4. Whether or not I believe he's at 1, which I do, or at least higher than Lamar Jackson, it's a top 100 list by the players. It didn't make much of an impact on me, opposed to just seeing more people glaze Patrick Mahomes online.
So speaking of glazing, I'm not familiar with Patrick Allen, but he's a football Twitter that has 100,000 million followers. And I believe he's based in Kansas City, for the record. But this was very emblematic of the garbage I saw. Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl with Sky Moore, MVS, Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, Rashee Rice, Richie James, Kadarius Toney, and Justin Ross as his pass catchers and finished number 4 in the NFL 100. What else did he need to do to get number 1, turn water into wine? this is disingenuous because you didn't mention Travis Kelce, because if you did, it would shit all over your argument. I would also say Rashee Rice is a good football player. They also have a very good back. Their defense also led the way when their offense was pissing the bed, which I think isn't. I know this is blasphemous, Tor, to say about Pat Mahomes, but if your offense pisses the bed for the entire season, I think it's okay if the guys that played against the quarterback decide, yeah, he's top 5. We can acknowledge that maybe he wasn't the best player in the NFL that year. And this is the main problem that I had with this entire fucking series of events, is that nobody wanted to have the actual debate, which is top 100 players in the NFL for this past season. Right? They wanted to make it, well, if you're starting a franchise, who's the one guy that you would call that tired trope? It's like, no. These are players who compete against these guys, saying who they thought were the best. And there is an argument to be made that Christian McCaffrey should have been number 1. Lamar Jackson won the MVP, was completely dominant down the stretch, just running roughshod over good team after good team. You can make an argument for him. And Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't have him at number 1, but statistically, look at his numbers. He's been absolutely dominant the past 2 seasons for the Miami Dolphins that throw the ball to everybody.
Yeah, also, just if we're doing the brief, if anybody wanted to do the brief debate on it, last year Mahomes was 6th in yards, 8th in touchdowns, 14th he only had 14 picks. He didn't have the best season of his career last year. He had a great defense, and as Isaiah Pacheco, I think, saved that team many times last year by being a great brute force out of the backfield. I thought L'Jarius Sneed was a major impact in the defensive line.
Against the Ravens, he single-handedly won the game for them in Baltimore.
Yes, so I can understand Patrick Mahomes not being considered the number 1 after having a down year for Mahomes, but he won the Super Bowl, and he's the Super Bowl winning quarterback. And the Chiefs were in the news every hour of every day during the last 3 months of the season last year, whether it be just Mahomes or the Kelce Swift effect. I think it more of the latter gave them more of a boost because they had some bad stretches last year. They dropped 2 straight to some weird teams, and they'll take how the Bengals take off September. The Chiefs will just decide to take 3 weeks off and just start confusing everybody in the cycle, and it'll be tied with one team in the AFC West that has no business being tied with the Chiefs. Like they won't leave the door open for the playoffs, but they'll leave it open regular season.
I know that because I as someone that did sports talk radio for a long time, there's a bunch of instances where there is a biggest story of the day and you must talk about it. And so you would get these listeners that said, why do you keep talking about whether or not Jason Campbell should be starting? It's like, well, there's nothing else going on. The Nationals games don't show up in the ratings, and the only thing we get calls for these topics. So I'm doing my job. So I don't want to sit here and scream like I don't understand the industry and that if guys are talking about this, it's because, hello, it's July and August. There ain't much going on outside of the Olympics. And this was something to discuss. The problem that I have is guys twisting the argument and making it sound like it is inconceivable. The ball washing and dick riding that goes on for Pat Mahomes is ubiquitous and it is constant. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but he's also a fucking goofball. He also sounds like Kermit the Frog. His wife's super annoying. Like the players see the same shit that we do. And it's very, very possible that they all just looked at this and this motherfucker didn't even have his best season. He's not going to be number 1 on my list. They're humans as well. And then just to sit here hosting your show and act like it's just impossible that this happens. Who gets more praise than Patrick Mahomes? I'm talking about in all of sport. You know, compare the shit that LeBron gets to the praise that LeBron gets to the shit that Mahomes gets and the praise he gets. It's not even close.
He is the media's Cinderella. And I recall back in 2017 on the top 100 list where Matt Ryan coming off of an MVP season. I know it was a tragic loss in the Super Bowl.
Very tragic.
But he was ranked number 10 and he would led in like touchdowns. He led in yards, completion percentage, quarterback rating. He was the MVP that year. And the players voted 9 other players higher than him. And I didn't think it was unfair, but I also didn't see all of the defense and criticism that, or all of the defense of Matt Ryan that Patrick Mahomes is getting. I know it's a little different and he has three Super Bowls, but coming off of an MVP season at 10 is different than winning a Super Bowl at 4. There's a different margin there.
I don't even think, and tell me if this is going too far, if I'm making a list of players where they are the most important to their team's success, I think Lamar Jackson was higher on that list last year. I might put Chris Jones higher on that list than Pat Mahomes last year. I put Christian McCaffrey higher on that list for the 49ers last year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys that you could say, what are we talking about then? Because it's fine to need to get carried by your defense or your running back or whatever. You get some bounces from the refs. That's part of the game. But if that's the case, well, then maybe you're not the best player in football for that year, and it doesn't matter how many trophies you have at home from the case from 2019. I don't think that's unfair.
There's plenty of quarterbacks that are joked around about because they weren't a dominant, awesome quarterback, but they still won Super Bowls. Trent Dilfer's won. Ken Stabler comes to mind, where he was good, but he was never, even in that era, a top 5 quarterback. And then to see Mahomes, who was a top 3 quarterback, getting all of this defense for coming in at number 4 and also number 2 on the list behind Lamar Jackson, it feels fair for last year. He didn't win the MVP. Lamar won the MVP last year. Lamar and the Ravens had a better record, even though they pissed down their legs in the playoffs and forgot how to run the ball. It doesn't matter. If we're talking about the regular season or however this top list shakes out, I think Lamar maybe did have more of an impact for Baltimore than Mahomes did for Kansas City.
Spider Club, $10 super chat. Thank you very much, bud. For the collection plate, fellas, love that Hill is number 1 on that list too. Well, you mentioned it, Tor. It's fortuitous because it's right as he gets his deal restructured. Now, the way that I saw it is it's no more additional time for him under contract with the Miami Dolphins. He's just going to get paid more like one of the top guys in the league since Justin Jefferson got his deal and a bunch of these other players.
Yep, restructured contracts worth $90 million over the next 3 years, with $65 million of it guaranteed. There's no denying Hill is he's still probably the best receiver in the NFL, but he is over 30. It's different. You don't want to start extending these guys to massive long contracts.
Speed guy too. He's a speed guy over 30.
Yes, and he has different speed than I've seen from NFL players before, because it's muscle and fast twitch speed instead of that crazy strider speed. Regardless, I don't think that he was looking for a massively long deal. He might want to juice out another one in 3 years for either a contender or a desperation team to give him a big bag.
I don't have a problem with this, especially with Jaden Waddle getting his. And I think Tyreek Hill is one of the best players in the league, and I don't think he'd ever dog it. But he also strikes me as a guy that you don't want him playing that disgruntled wide receiver role. There is just guys that it's like they can handle this sort of thing, and maybe they're guys that keeping him happy, I think, is important. And if anyone has come through and showed you that, yeah, you were right to come and get me, somehow he was one of the best wide receivers in the league, and he's way better now with the Miami Dolphins. So I don't got a problem with it. To go to the type of receiver he is, like I feel Andre Johnson's going in the Hall of Fame, and Megatron, guys like that. It didn't work that way with Larry Fitzgerald kind of just decided he'd had enough. And of course, Julio Jones. I thought guys like that would be able to play another 7 years, like something like what Terrell Owens did, just because of the size and the body positioning. And it's not like their game is predicated on speed. Speed's a part of it, but everything with him is I'm 4 yards past you. And you didn't even, you're trying to still wonder where I was getting out of the break. Like it is a risk, like you're talking about, because of the type of receiver he is, but I don't have a problem with Miami making this right, especially when he's paid off in spades for them over and over.
Yeah, and if you have a guy with his skill set, eventually in the game, you're going to have to force one safety down, or else Miami will just gut you they will break your zone, they will break your man. Eventually you'll have to adapt. And if you're playing Miami, you're just hoping to get lucky that Tua doesn't hit that throw to Tyreek Hill, because he's just going to beat your corner. There's 1 or 2 corners that I think that might get the best of Hill every now and then, but for the most part, I mean, his beat the DB rate is high. You
want to see somebody hit a wide receiver?
I would.
Why don't we take a look at this real quick? Tell me if you think this looks like a good throw. It's from Mr. Will Levis.
Dropping back. Oh, good arc on that thing. Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to get ahead of myself. For those of you that are listening to the podcast, Will Levis just dropped a fucking teardrop. I think it was Westbrook and Kine. I'm not sure. They also had video of Calvin Ridley looking like the fastest man on the planet, of just blowing past DBs. Now, of course, the ball was falling at his feet and falling over his fucking head and throwing out the back of the end zone. But I think it's possible that if Levis is, let's say, the 15th best quarterback in the league,
sure,
Titans just have way more talent than they did, and they reinforced their offensive line, and their system has been updated. I don't have delusions of grandeur, especially in that division. But I'm not in love with Jacksonville, and I'm not in love with a quarterback that played 4 games in Indianapolis. All of a sudden, people are saying he should get some MVP consideration. Like, outside of the Texans, who I think are one of the best teams in the league,
yeah,
I could see Tennessee splitting with those other teams and stealing a game here and there and being around 500.
I saw someone writing about how Anthony Richardson is getting more comfortable in Indianapolis. I say to that, great. I hope so. He could be very fun for the league, and he could be a very good NFL quarterback. But I am going to be patient with my takes on him, because he could run himself into another shoulder injury, or he could start losing his confidence. I'm not sure. Indianapolis is such a weird spot for quarterbacks.
The problem that I have with what they're doing with him there, Tor, and we've talked about this on this show, is the over the top, we're not changing anything about what he does, and him, I'm not changing about anything. It's not about changing what you do. No one is saying you draft a quarterback with this unbelievable athleticism and legs and power, and they don't have that as part of their component. It is judiciously knowing when to implement it. And clearly that was a problem last year. And to over the top come out and say, we're not going to do anything different. Okay, you learn from your mistakes or you don't. And I think you've seen a lot of quarterbacks that run well kind of update the way they play football with injuries and with, I love Joe Flacco, but if that's going to be a team that has designs on winning a playoff game this year, it ain't going to be if Joe Flacco's got to play 10 games.
It's frustrating, because when you're playing football, you go to, if you can play college football, you realize, wow, I have been not really playing football in high school. This was football for dummies, which it is. High school football is as remedial as it gets. Then you go to college and it all expands and it opens up for you, and you say, okay, I am going to have to start learning how to play this game. The NFL, from what I've heard, is even more of that. So to decide to not change, not adapt, that's different than not learning the playbook. I think all NFL quarterbacks now are very much demanded to learn the playbooks.
You think?
It's the NFL. It's supposed to be harder mentally. You are supposed to adapt. This is why all the money is getting paid for the coaches and the players. So it's not stubborn, oh, I'm playing me ball. You're in the NFL. We are playing we ball because we have coaches here that aren't dumb and on the recruiting trail. This is our jobs. You have to trust that we are doing our jobs well.
Wee ball. You just come up with that with yourself?
Ugh.
Michelle Wee Ball. A lot of people are wanting to know if you've seen Deadpool yet. It's another thing that we need to address on the show today. Oh, I just got a text from Santana. He said 2:15. So just a little bit later than we thought. No big deal. That means we can listen to our new theme song like at least 15 or 16 more times to our in between now and when 2:15 rolls around. I know the audience is there.
Both types of sports with Shoot and Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
Yes, that's what we have here. Brock Sampson with 2 N's. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Has Tor watched Golden Child or Deadpool 3? There is no Deadpool 3, Brock Sampson. There is Deadpool Wolverine. And Golden Child, we know he has it on Blu-ray because I purchased it for him, and he reminded me of that on Friday. If either one of those movies got into your rotation, friendo?
On Saturday, one of these two movies did. I decided I'm going to try to be more frugal on Saturday, save some money. So I queued up Logan.
You being frugal? That's not something that's within your usual character. Jesus Christ. You know what would be so shocking if you said, I decided not to be so frugal, so I went out and I enjoyed myself. Didn't you go to a Yankees game? Didn't I see you tipping fofos at the goddamn... It's got to be $17 beers at Yankee Stadium.
Free beers, free buffet. I had myself a night. And it wasn't even one of these, you got to walk up to the bar and get your beer, get your vodka soda. There's a nice gentleman coming by every about 10 minutes. If you need a new beer, flag him down. He'll bring you a big, tall 16-ounce Miller Lite.
How did you swing this?
It was a wedding gift for my roommate's parents, and I got invited for the.
Oh,
to
you
the club shoot.
glommed onto a wedding gift?
Yeah, big time glom.
How's the new Yankees? I guess it's not that new anymore. How's that new Yankee Stadium?
Look, I tell you, the stadium looked big. It felt big. It felt big because when we got off the subway, it was a torrential downpour, and I was too frugal to buy a $10 poncho.
Oh, Jesus.
So
I love how you're just throwing frugal around because you don't want to say cheapskate, chiseling ass.
So I basically walked through category 2 to get to our gates to go up to the club level, and I found myself my first experience in Yankee Stadium, shirtless in the stall, wringing out my t-shirt to try to get some of the water out. But other than that,
soaking wet skinflint. That's who they saw lumbering down. Interesting that the Yankee Stadium felt big to you. I'm sure you felt big to Yankee Stadium as well. So you saw, all right, what did you watch? You said you watched Logan?
I watched Logan, and then I watched Deadpool and Wolverine later on that evening. So I gave myself a double feature.
Did you steal Deadpool and Wolverine, or did you go to a movie theater?
Went to the theater.
Look at you.
Got myself.
How much was a movie ticket at night? Was that a Saturday?
Saturday.
Ooh, I'm going to guess in New Jersey, $22 for your ticket.
$18.
Okay. That's what I'm paying.
It was fine for me. It's a big movie right now, and it was a full theater, so I was fine with it, and felt like I should see the new slop that Marvel's peddling out to me.
Did you sneak in your candy and your sodas?
I did not. I bought a movie theater popcorn, and I bought a big.
Somebody's doing well. I would not have guessed that.
But I bought a gallon of fruit, the big soda cup, loaded it with the fruit punch, and then because they did not have the I think this was a Regal Cinemas that I was at, so they don't have the Coke fusion machines. They kind of have a bit of a lower tier soda dispensary selection, so I just went with the fruit punch, which I found
a bargain. You got a 44-ounce fruit punch. There's no chance you slept that night. I mean, that shit. I don't know how fruit punch is that much more nutritionally like bankrupt than soda pop is, but it fucking is, man. If you have a big Hawaiian punch, you will be wired for the rest of the day like a 4-year-old.
Oh, so delicious. It was good.
So Logan is one of the more depressing movies I've ever seen, but very good. And then you go from Logan to Deadpool Wolverine, which is just coked out, batshit crazy, blood, massacre, decapitation. That's quite a culture shock. What was it like seeing them back to back?
I don't know if I enjoyed I kind of enjoyed Logan because
Logan's
I think
tough.
It was a good movie, but seeing old Charles Xavier at times was really a bummer when he was yelling, falling out of the chair.
He's having all the problems.
Having the problems was tough. But I was glad I was introduced to X-23 because that was a very fun character, and I'm glad I watched Logan beforehand, and I thank you for giving me that heads up also.
Well, I feel bad. My wife wants to go see Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm like, you're not going to appreciate half the shit in it because you don't know anything about these characters, and like half of Deadpool and Wolverine is here's this guy from this movie 15 years ago. Here's this guy from this movie 22 years ago, and if you can't enjoy that stuff, I don't know how you're going to enjoy the movie as a whole.
Yeah, there were times where I'm like, oh, this is why Shu'd like this movie, because there's a bunch of characters.
Don't spoil anything. I'm doing the full review, spoiler-filled review on the Chad Duke Show on Wednesday's episode. So I'm trying to keep it under wraps until then. Although, Jesus Christ, the internet is not trying to keep anything under wraps. I mean, they're doing interviews with the characters that you're supposed to not know about before you go into the film.
Right. So there are definitely some pops in the theater. I think I might have been in a theater full of a lot of dummies. There were a lot of big laughs. I had some good hard exhales. Some people made me laugh pretty hard in the film, and or at least a little bit of a chuckle. I wish cocaine was referenced more in the movie. That's
a lot of cocaine talk.
That's always really funny, fun shtick. Let's just.
A lot of cocaine talk. There's some parts where the dialogue drags, but I think it's just horrific as Marvel has been since Endgame and just how tragically awful they seem to be downward spiraling, it did feel like a bit of a bootstrap, and we're going to get back to what you want. And here's two roided up aggro males chopping people's heads off for 90 straight minutes. And whenever they fought, I was there for it. Like whenever they're fucking stabbing each other and shooting each other, like that's just a shitload of fun.
I'll say this. The minivan fight was probably it was probably as much fun as I've had in a movie this year. That fight, and I'll give it credit. And they were trying to do bad shtick about the it's all shtick, so I can't. That's
a lot of Honda Odyssey shtick, enormous amount of minivan shtick.
I knew that's what it was going to be coming in, so I can't really knock it because I'm going to see the big goofy shtick movie. But when Deadpool and Wolverine were really getting after it, I was able to just kind of lock in and enjoy it, which was nice. I could turn my brain off a little bit and just enjoy all the good fighting, which I thought was strong.
At the bottom, at the baseline, the base level of a tour, they delivered what you wanted to see. You wanted to see Hugh Jackman as that character interacting with Ryan Reynolds and all the shtick, and then just copious violence. So if nothing else, it's like I ordered a steak. Here is a steak. We're not putting truffles on top of it and mushrooms and queso cheese. Brock Sampson, 1999 super chat. Thank you so much. Tour's reimbursement for watching Marvel's new Sloop. Oh, I guess that's Short Arms that's sending that in there. I guess he meant slop there.
Yeah.
Hey, no, the super chats go to me, Short Arms. He ain't going to see a penny of this. I just want to make sure you know that right now. That's not a bad deal for a movie out of New York. I would have thought you'd been down $100, and then you got the Yankees game for free, the free Budweisers. This is I'm a little bit I gotta say I'm a little
It was free hot dogs. It was free. It was just the buffet.
Somebody else paid for it.
Someone else did pay for it. They paid, but they got their money's worth out of me. I was not going to be one of these people that has an opportunity to live it up a little bit and just has a couple olives and a side salad. No, it's going to be the big beers, and it's going to be the pork loin, and we're going to get the double sliders. And then, yeah, you can drag me away from this soft serve machine by my ankles. That's what you can do.
Oh, did you have to make a bowel movement in Yankee Stadium?
I did okay. I almost peed my pants walking home later on in the evening.
That is a feminine thing to say. All right. Thank you, Brock. Appreciate it, bud. Good Lord. All right. Santana's going to join us in like 5 minutes. I wanted to play a little bit of this. Where's Daniel Jeremiah for you on your Analyst power ranking? He is very close to the top for me.
I find myself disagreeing with him very little. So I think he's close to the top for me.
And he's also, I think he on screen, he just seems like a guy that was born to be on television, but doesn't seem as like disingenuous as, yes, absolutely, and needy as a lot of television personalities. So this is him from the NFL Network, and he's talking with Bucky Brooks. I've had both these guys on my old show before. I've always said this, Tord. I've said this to you many times when we're doing shows, and I take it from the great Ron Bennington as I take a lot of things. There's nothing less interesting than people sitting around agreeing on the radio and television. It's never any good. And I'm not saying we go as far as Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp and, people are coming up with just over the top bombastic horse shit just because they know it's going to get into the zeitgeist. I'm saying realizing you're on a show and making an argument that is different than other people's arguments is not necessarily a bad thing. Who's the quarterback that ran out of the back of the end zone that everybody gets mad at?
Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah. I think Dan Orlovsky sometimes does this, where he says something where people get mad at him, but it's like just agreeing with what everybody else says, while maybe it means you're being an honest analyst, it doesn't necessarily mean you're putting on a great show. So I want you to keep that in mind when you hear what Bucky Brooks says here. But I also want you to keep in mind, I think Bucky Brooks is making a logical argument despite what everyone else, including Daniel Jeremiah, who I think is one of the best in the business, seems to feel about Pat Mahomes getting all of this disrespect for not being number one on this top 100.
One like best picture, like best producer, best director.
I think he's talking about The Revenant here, by the way. He's talking about Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, which, by the way, another really good movie that I never want to watch again. That is a lot of bear rape in that movie. I'm not a big fan.
And it won like best picture, like best producer, best director, and then Leo DiCaprio didn't win he's the whole movie. Like, how do you not win best actor? How can you?
If he had done it 6 straight years, yes, I would agree with it. I think it's just Patrick Mahomes fatigue. Is that what it is?
Okay, couple of things here. Yeah, it probably is Patrick Mahomes fatigue a little bit. But Tord, is that how we feel? Like Leonardo DiCaprio has been in movies where he's the entire movie. But in Gangs of New York, he's not the entire movie. He's not even the best part of the movie.
Right.
And that's still a fantastic movie that should have won any Best Picture out there.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Maybe
Thank you.
the Chiefs this year were probably gangs in New York.
Yeah, they weren't the Revenant. If this season was like why Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time is that Tom Brady took dog shit depth charts to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. Right? Joe Montana never had to do that.
It's Tom Brady making his receivers better. That became a theme of the late 2000s, early 2010s, where it was Peyton and Brady. Can you make your teammates around you better? And that became, this is what we're looking for in quarterbacks. It shifted a little bit, but that was a bit of a standard.
And I think that there's seasons where Mahomes has done that. The season before, when they have Juju Smith-Schuster and all those Jags out there, and they still go win the Super Bowl. But last year he didn't. He had his moments, and he had big runs and big throws. I'm not taking that away from him. But a lot of times it was someone else stepping up. So I think the Leonardo DiCaprio, the Revenant analogy is a good one for some years, but not necessarily last year. I think it's more Gangs of New York.
It may be, but remember, this offense sputtered for a large part of the season. The offense sputtered. It wasn't a high-flying offense that it was in the past.
What do you mean, wow? Why do you need to say wow? That's exactly what happened. It sputtered and cost them games. It almost cost them playoff games, Tor. And who came up? Who did you mention? L'Jarius Sneed, poking the football out, forcing turnovers. Like, this isn't a crazy argument that he's making. And the way they treat him throughout this segment is that this guy's a lunatic that needs to be locked away in 4 wins.
I would agree.
All right, Santana's here. I'll start screaming about this again in just a couple of minutes. We can ask Santana about it too. There's no reason why he can't. He's a pro. What's up, Tana man?
Dukes. What's up, buddy?
How are you, brother? Where are you at?
Man, missed my flight this morning. Well, I didn't miss it. They canceled it. So I'm still in Florida. I was coming back to D.C. today because I had to work and everything. But, yeah, you know, that's life. It's a hurricane out there somewhere. So I had to stay put.
If you ever want to feel like you're not doing anything with your life, all you need to do is text Santana and hear about his schedule. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm not that busy. He's like, the NFL Network needs me, and the Commanders need me, and the Hurricanes need me, and I'm filming a movie, and I'm doing that. I'm working at this charity. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm just doing nothing with my life. Well, you're in Florida, so you're coming back up, though. It's almost that time of year, right? I assume you're going to be doing all the TV and all the radio.
Yeah, I'm up there every week. I just had a little break this weekend, so I came to check on the kids before I got too busy, and then ended up it was a tropical storm out there that's now a hurricane, so they canceled a bunch of flights. But I'm good. You know, I get another day down here in South Florida and be back to work tomorrow.
Now, I'm going to warn you, Santana. This is my producer / co-host. His name's Gigantor. I've warned him, please don't have any fanboy moments because he's a fanboy. But I just wanted to give you, I've been around you at many radio station events where people come up and say embarrassing things to you. And that might happen here in the next couple of minutes. So I just wanted to warn you beforehand.
Oh, man, it's all love, though. What's up, buddy?
Appreciate you being on the show. I'll try to keep it about as professional as I can.
How many times, Santana, do people come up to you and say, remember that game against the Cowboys?
Remember that game? Do you remember that game? Yeah, I remember that game. How can I forget, huh? You know, it's love though, Chad. I mean, that's something, man. Over the years, it never gets. I'm never tired of hearing it because, like I said before, you know, one of the things about playing the game, it's one thing when you're a kid and you say, man, this is what I want to do when I grow up, and there's another to go out there and make an impact that I've made and to be able to be remembered by something, you know what I mean? And so to be able to walk the streets, man, especially in the DMV and people look at that game as that's their highlight, hey, I'm all for it, man, because I know there was plenty of others like it, but that's the game that they want to remember me by, man. Go ahead and have it, you know?
It's always funny because they always phrase it the same way. They say, do you remember that game on Monday night against Dallas? Like, why would he not remember that? And
How can I forget?
Doing the show at LeVar, the amount of people that came up and said, remember when you knocked out Troy Aikman? I'm like, that's not something you forget. Like, you got to phrase it some other way. Man, lots going on. What I wanted to ask you about, Tor and I were just screaming about this. This players list comes out. Did you vote? This thing's been around for like 13 years, so you had to have voted in a couple of these.
Never made the player. By the time it came out, you talking about the top 100?
Yeah.
by the time the top 100 came out, I wasn't in the starting lineup anymore. Remember, I had just moved to the slot, so I missed that era of the top 100. By that time, I'm playing third down. So of course, even though I was putting up great numbers, a couple of those years, I wasn't, never going to probably be voted in the top 100.
But did you ever vote, because it's players, it's guys that are in the league voting for their fellow athletes? Did you ever vote in one of those lists for other players?
I believe I have. I'm not sure, because I know a lot of times they say that and they pick certain guys to do that. So I'm not sure we did it as a team or as a group or as a core. But I don't really recall. Like I say, it was around my last 2 or 3 years in the league. So it's probably something that was so new to me that I probably didn't pay close attention to,
Did you see all of the people losing their minds that Patrick Mahomes was only voted number 4 and it's some crime against the sport of football that he's not number 1, and then Tyreek Hill, who's a wide receiver, he's voted number 1. I just don't know how you could watch Mahomes last year, and he was great and they won the Super Bowl, but he had a down year. I think Lamar Jackson was more important to his team than Mahomes was to his last year. Christian McCaffrey was unbelievable. I don't see what's so wrong with saying, okay, Mahomes was great. He's in the top 5. It wasn't his best year. And his peers are the ones that are saying this, the guys that compete against him every week.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with either of those guys. I mean, I think about it when you look at, to me, I looked at it more as in saying, who was the guy that the whole league can say, man, we couldn't do nothing to stop this guy.
Yeah.
So I don't look at it as more so as saying who won or who was the best this. No, it's a guy that's the best in the league that no matter what happened, no matter what you threw at him, you couldn't stop him. And I think, that was Tyreek Hill. Tyreek is phenomenal, man. And I used to sit there and scratch my head like, look, I understand when they give me and Steve Smith credit for being that first, I guess you can say, line of little guys that kind of got out of that mode of saying that we can't be every down receivers. But since then, man, Tyreek Hill has made a different kind of impact for guys like us. And it's just one of those things to watch, man. I watched him last year against us, and I'm like, how you don't put the whole defense on him? Like, I would just say, screw what they're doing. Just stop this guy. So when I look at that list and I see him as number 1, last year, he was definitely that guy. He was, to me, the best player in the NFL last season.
I don't want to step on you, Tor. I know you have a question. But Santana, what does he do? I know he's super fast, but you're super fast. There's a lot of wide receivers. The big guys are super fast. They're just larger. What is he doing? Is it body positioning? Is it getting out of the break? Like, what is he doing so much differently that he's catching 1,700 yards without Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback?
One thing is fast, and then it's lightning fast. It's like Sonic the Hedgehog's fast. That's what I call Tyreek Hill. Like, Tyreek Hill is a different kind of fast. Like I pat myself on the back for running my little 4.2 and low 4.3, but that guy's like legitimately 4.1, low 4.2. You know what I'm saying? And it's a different kind of speed than the speed that I had, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But when you look at guys like that, you say, okay, they only can do so much, and you try to pigeonhole little guys, say, well, they can't be an outside threat, they can't do this, they can't do that. He can play outside, he can play in the slot, he can play in the backfield. Hell, if you want to put him back there in punt return, kick return, he can do those things. He's just a difference maker. Every time he touches the ball, it's not like he's not going to do something. He turns it up every single time. So I think that's what it comes down to when it comes to talking about him. Now, if you watch ball around at the time when Randy Moss played and how unbelievable it was, like he was a freak of nature, that's Tyreek Hill in a smaller package. He's a freak of nature. You can't do anything to stop him, and he can outrun your cover 2 coverage. He can beat double team coverage. He's just one of those guys, man, and it seems like he's just getting better and better every year. So salute to Tyreek Hill, man. He deserves all the recognition he's getting. I was hoping he got 2,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
There's always something that happens, but man, he's one of those guys, man. I'm glad that the other NFLers or ball players see him the same way I see him.
I like to pat myself on the back for running my 5.8 previously. Santana, Jerry Jeudy's been generating a good amount of buzz lately in Cleveland. Do you think that this year he could take the next step and become a legit threat on the outside?
I mean, I think Jerry Jeudy is one of those guys. I mean, when you watched him his first year, he looked like that guy. Then he ended up having to take the little sabbatical, and then he ended up playing that was Jacksonville last year. You know, he's a guy that can really go out there and do it. I mean, he's one of the best route runners in the game. He's a South Florida guy. I just feel like it's all about the quarterback. Whoever he has throwing him the ball, that guy can get him the ball. No doubt he can go out there and be one of those top, I can say top 10, wide receivers in this league.
All right. The team that you played for has had some ups and downs. You're going to be talking about them all season long, but Jaden Daniels is a guy that immediately brings excitement. People are jazzed up. I don't know how they can't be. Some would argue maybe he should have gone 1 overall. Who knows? If things change differently, teams are slotted in a different area. And it looks like there's some nice position players there. I think Austin Eckler's a nice pickup. He's a guy that can catch the ball, score touchdowns. But Santana, I don't know how many conversations we've had, and it's been different general managers, different coaches, what have you. I would ask you the questions very open-ended and answer it any way you like. Why should we believe that anything that's going to happen with the Commanders now is going to be any different than all of the other times we've been excited for Robert Griffin III or Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson and Dana Stubblefield or any of the other stuff that's happened over the past 25 years or so? Do you get any different feeling with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and this group moving forward this year?
Trying to make this the best. I'm trying to put this in the best words I can say it in. I think if you sit there and dwell on the past, then like a lot of fans do, then you will look at it as they're just the same Commanders, sure. Whether it's the same, Washington team or whatever you want to call them. But I think if you're one of those guys I'm always optimistic, that's just the kind of, outlook I have on life in general. But when you look at just everything from top to bottom, I think you can honestly say right now, this has been the most refreshing start of a season that I've ever been around. And I've played for the team for 10 years and been here another 10 plus, been here another 10, not playing, sitting in the seat I'm sitting in now, covering games and broadcasting. It's just a different kind of feel and vibe or energy, I can say, in the building, because it seems like everything that has been pointed out about whether it's our stadium, whether it's the facility, this new ownership has taken, they made it their duty to say, hey, we got to make sure that we give the fans the best, the players the best. And not only that, put ourselves in position to go out there and compete the best by getting a GM. They're doing everything they have to do. That's what makes me feel that if you wasn't a fan or a person that followed this team, if you can just look at some of the moves they made from top to bottom, because I think we get caught up in the game so much, we don't really think about what it takes to go out there and really be one of those contenders. It's all about personnel, that's one thing, but you got to get the guys to get those personnel, to put those guys in position. So, not only is it about getting a head coach, you got to get the guy who's going to get the head coach, and that's the GM. You know what I mean? So it's so much that they've done right now and still has more to do. That will give any fan or non-fan that kind of, okay, you know what, this might be something different. You still have to play the game. I would never sit here and tell a fan or any person out there to say feel any different. However you want to feel that way, because at the end of the day, they have to play the game. And so that's why, as a player, a former player, and a guy now that's following them, I never get too high. I'm always going to, hope for the best, but I'm never going to get too high until they go out there and show me who they're going to be. And you still won't know until they get to the finished product or the final, pieces, put everything, put all the pieces together to that puzzle. But I think it's one of those things going to be an ongoing thing week in and week out, because they're a new team that's trying to build a nucleus. They have a young quarterback, young staff, and not young staff. And, these guys haven't been around, but when it comes to just new, for the area being in Washington, all these guys got to get familiar with each other and just know what it takes to go out there and win together. And I think it's going to take some time.
All right. That's well said. And I think eventually it doesn't matter what all the debate during the offseason or how high or low the fans are. Once you get out there and you play the games, that's all you really need to worry about. We can speculate all we want. What you can give an opinion on is if you are a veteran in a locker room, because Amani Toomer just got a bunch of shit for coming out and saying he wouldn't have gone for this. And I know you know Amani Toomer. And a rookie quarterback said, why aren't you picking up all your Gatorade bottles? Go throw them in the garbage. Because this happened. Caleb Williams, it was a big story, went and said, hey, it's too messy in this locker room. I think on paper that sounds really good. I think if you're coming in and there's a bunch of grown men that have been in an NFL environment for many years and you're immediately trying to, that's a little bit of sunning. That's not, hey, I'm a field general. That's you need to do better. I think I'd be irritated by that if I was a veteran. I'm curious how you would have responded if that took place in one of your locker rooms.
It all depends on how it's projected, I guess you can say. I'm curious to know what was really said. You know, when we hear things, we react for what we heard, not really being in that situation and knowing how it was, said. And I guarantee that Caleb probably didn't just go out there and check an older guy like, do this, do that.
Right.
Probably said something in the sense of, hey man, we need to clean up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And people take it out of, and take it and go as far as they want to go with it. Now, I don't know if Amani heard more than me or not. I didn't hear much about it, so I can't elaborate that much. But if I'm in those shoes and a guy coming there acting like he's the the best thing since Jesus himself, then yeah, you're gonna feel a certain way. But if a guy's telling me as a grown man that I need to, we need to do better and clean up, then I might need to look at myself and make sure that I'm, I hold myself accountable and do what's needed, because I feel like I hated the fact that certain guys would just leave stuff around the lockers when we was in the locker room and allow the people to come in there who I guess you could say, quote unquote, who had that job to clean up after us. Now, if you have something that you can put in the trash can that's a couple of steps away, do that. And now at times it's stuff that fall off of your clothes or your shoes, dirt and all that stuff. I don't have a vacuum or I don't have a broom in my locker. So yes, I can't clean that up. But I won't be offended if a guy just told me to, pick up my trash, which I should. Right. And I think anybody who looked at it or take it further than what it needs to go, then they're just looking for something to really talk about. So like I said before, I can't elaborate as much on it, but that's my look at it,
Santana, briefly for the Commanders preseason, they're playing this week, and Dan Quinn explained that he's planning on playing Jaden Daniels in this game. Do you like? Oh, so you okay? Yeah, so your team get the rookies in on the preseason. I know there's been a lot of pushback in the NFL of resting players during the preseason. I've always felt like those reps are important, especially when games start mattering in September.
Yeah, I played football, man. I mean, I don't know a point in my life where, as a young guy or a veteran, where I didn't play. So, in the preseason. So I think we get caught up into what's going on out here and what people say and with the games being, I guess you could say numbered a little bit now. They only have 3 preseason games. He hasn't really did nothing. He hasn't got that feel. You have to get him out there. I don't think, when Robert was here, we got him out there early and gave him his reps and got him out of there. So you got to play football. And one of the things I like about this staff, they're all about going out there playing football. A lot of guys, I think too, when you look at what's going to probably take place later on this camp, it's going to be a lot of good players getting cut because this new staff they all about having the right people on this team that's going to play at the type of football that they want to be. They want to play week in and week out, and they're going to bring it, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of those guys go out there and make their case of why they should be on the team.
Santana, give me a rough estimate on how many questions about Robert Griffin III you've had to answer in your career.
I don't know a number. That's the part about it. I can't even give you a number. It's an ongoing thing. It probably always happen. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those things. It's one of those what if. You know what I mean? What if this didn't happen, or what if that didn't happen? So it's probably going to be one of those things, man. And then Robert just being the guy he is. Robert's one of those guys that has taken TV by storm. We can see, we saw that before he played the game, because he's one of those guys. He's well-spoken, and he's humorous at times, but he's one of those guys, man. He does a great job being an analyst. So as long as he's out there in the light, man, I'm probably going to never stop hearing his name mentioned. But it's one of those things that I think that it'll never be a number I could come up with.
You and I were doing a show at Velocity 5 in Centerville, which I don't think is in business anymore. And unfortunately, that's probably a good thing.
It was a nice spot, though.
Yeah, it was. It was fun while we were doing it. They had good food. I remember Tim, the engineer, went and blew up the toilet one time, and none of us could go back there for like at least an hour afterwards. It was
Why horrible. You gonna do Tim like that?
I love Tim, but he knows what he did. You had to answer. I counted during one show 13 different Robert Griffin III questions, and you had been in the locker room and nobody wanted to talk. And Russell would come in, Chris Russell's crazy ass would come in and say, Santana's the only one that'll talk about it. So we have to all ask him all these questions. I mean, during that one, that was a bad year. And you must have had to answer 75 questions by the time we were done with the show that day.
Yeah. I mean, it comes with the territory, man. I think too, when you have a quarterback that showed the glimpses of being that guy that he showed that first year, and then things kind of spiraled out of control later on, you didn't really know what to put it on. Was it him getting injured? Was it him not being comfortable with the staff or the system? It's going to basically come, you know what I mean? So those questions are going to come. So it's one of those things, man. To this day, I've always been that guy that shine a light on whatever it may be that I have a little insight on. If I don't know nothing, I'm not going to say much. So, that's one of those things. I was there, so I was able to elaborate a little more on what was going on. Never really, showed my hand when it comes to, more than what needed to be known, because, there's certain things that goes on in the locker room that you just don't speak on. But I just feel like, man, it's one of those things, man. People, to this day, like, I'm, covering the team now, and you get fans, man, that still talks about him, and especially if he shows up to a game or two, man. He has a lot of fans still in the area. So, kudos to him for having the year that he had. But we all wish that it would have lasted a little longer.
You got a lot of fans in the area. Now I'll let you go. I know you're sitting in the Florida heat. I appreciate you doing this. Tor's only 20. I think he's only 26. One of the few things we have in common is we're both huge Outcast fans. And the story I told him is that you were the one that told me that Players Ball is a Christmas Carol by Outkast. And that changed my life because I always loved that song, but I never picked up on the sleigh bells in the background. And Andre starts out with, it's beginning to look a lot like, I mean, it's a Christmas Carol by Outkast. And now it's in every Christmas playlist that I put together. And I just felt like an idiot until you put me onto that. I think, did you find out about that there was a documentary or something you watched? I forgot how you found that out.
So I'm a big Outkast fan, and I was always sharing with you, and I appreciate you guys. Whenever you had me on the show, you would kind of start the segment off with Outkast. Sure. I was an ATLians. That was one of my favorite CDs, and back then when we see how I'm saying CDs. So that was one of my favorite albums. Put it like that, and it actually got me all the way through high school football, college football, and the pros. I literally, when that album came out, I would listen to that before the game since I was in high school. And that was the album that basically retired me. But and I'm just so happy sitting at home watching a documentary after I done retired, and I just found it out. So when we had a show one day, and I coming in, I'm telling you about it, like, bro, I just found this out. And I'm one of the biggest fans of these guys, and I never knew that was a Christmas song. So it was new to me, and I was willing to share it with you, man. But it's the same way as me. Like, once I found that out, it's on all my playlists too when it comes to holidays.
Yeah, changed my life. I don't know why, but it's spinning me on my ear. Did you get Andre? Did you get 3 Stacks jazz flute album?
I did, because I have that whole Apple thing where you just get albums. You can pay $10.99 a month. So I downloaded it, and I tried my hardest to listen to it, man. But I was a guy that put some money in his pocket, so I did the most I could. You know what I'm saying? I'm one of those guys. Like at the end of the day, I bought the album, so I did my part. But look, man, I want to hear this guy get out there and spit, man. He's one of the best lyricists in the game, I think. Still, he's a Gemini like myself, although he's a May Gemini, I believe. But I want to see the guy do what he does best. And I heard, I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this, but I heard that it may be something brewing with him and Big Boy. So something new might be coming. So I'm hoping and praying, because I definitely want to hear this guy, do what he's been gifted to do, man. And that's just, he know how to put words together, man. He's one of the best that can do it.
I know, but it would be like if you came out and said, I'm not talking about football anymore. I'm just going to talk about how to raise cats appropriately. It's like, and then Big Boy's been sitting here making music and making hits and giving us exactly what we want. When Big Boy and Sleepy Brown do a song together, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a song I'm going to listen to. And it's been 15 years of him having to answer Outkast. I mean, that's his RG3s. He's like, I got to answer nothing but Andre 3000 questions when I go out. So I'm with you. I'd love to see them do stuff together, but I really do think Big Boy gets the short end of all of that every time because people are so focused on Andre rapping again.
Yeah, I think he does, but I think when you look at his bank account, he don't care. Big Boy, one of those kind of guys. He like, man, I'm gonna make money forever on these albums, man. So at the end of the day, if 3 stacks and you ain't coming out of retirement, then I'm gonna go ahead and tour the world, spitting these rhymes that we blessed everybody with,
And playing the halftime of the Super Bowl a couple years back. That was fantastic.
That was dope. That was dope.
Tori, thank you for keeping it together while Santana was on. I appreciate that.
Of course. Fought like hell.
Daddy, man, thank you so much for the time, buddy. Great to catch up with you. I really appreciate you coming on.
All love, man. I appreciate it. Till next time.
That's my guy. 8 to the 9 on IG. Give him a follow. The great Santana Moss. How awesome is that, dude?
It's the best. It's the best.
He's the best, man. He's just the nicest. I said, whenever I would interact with him in person or anywhere, I was like, that guy is the most comfortable in his own skin of anybody that I've ever met in my life. And he's also the friendliest. And it's like this perfect combination. I think that's why, he had a great career, but he is beloved in a way that lots of other players that, maybe did more tape to tape in their career, they don't get that type of recognition. So it didn't shock me that he was willing to come on.
He just seems like a guy that doesn't mail it in any facet.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think just as a human you can respect. Even off the field, he doesn't mail it in, which is just it's nice. It's refreshing to see because I know I love mailing it in. It's the best.
And look at you not stuttering or stammering over any of your questions to him. I was so proud of you. It was awesome. Rick Austin, 11 super chat, 4 sticks for Zeppelin. Every time he sends this super chat, I go listen to Led Zeppelin 4 after the show almost immediately. Thank you, Rick. And Ricky Holzapple, what are your thoughts on the U this year? Oh, I should have put that up while he was on. I'm sorry, Ricky. Tor, what are your thoughts on the U this year?
It's not just because we just had Santana on. Very high on the U this year. I think they win the ACC. Their quarterback Cam Ward is a very talented quarterback, and I think they got a lot of the goofy shit out of the way last year with all the bad coaching decisions. They had to get it out of their system. Prime the pump this year. I am very high on Miami this year.
We should do a remix for you anytime you talk about Miami football on the show where we say, you crank that soldier tour. You crank. Is that cringe? Is that awkward for you that I said that? I was thinking about that as you were responding. I'm like, this is the cringiest thing I've said in quite some time. Let me make the tour uncomfortable. Yeah, apologies. Thank you, Ricky Holzapple. Maybe we'll name this episode Crank That Soldier Tour. You think that would get us over? That'd get us to 300 followers on Twitter. One last thing we'll wrap up. I've kept you too long, Tor. We kept Santana too long, and I've kept you for too long. But I did want to analyze this. I don't know if you saw this, but the Green Bay Packers released their icy whites. This is a couple of months, I think, after the Minnesota Vikings did. The Vikings named theirs Winter Warrior. And they actually did this whole photo shoot. You can see it here with all the ice crystals like behind them on a set. The Packers released all white uniforms several months later called Winter Warning. Not Winter Warrior Tour, but Winter Warning. First of all, Jordan Love does not look like he wants to be there. I wanted to at least point that out. I don't necessarily have a problem with the all whites. I was really into the black uniforms with the helmet and the jersey and the pants. Like I was way into that for a while. And the NFL does what they do. They beat that to death. And I think the Colts were the Colts were the death of that, right? They had a terrible all black uni.
They introduced the Indiana Knights uniforms last year.
How do you remember the name of it?
Because it's a tragedy. And that kind of put a rest to everything, I think.
Yeah, they're terrible. The all whites, I'm not necessarily done with yet, although someone called the Vikings helmet a sperm helmet because of the shape of the horn. I can't really unsee it, but I saw a Vikings YouTuber going hog wild, shitting on the Packers, saying they ripped off the Minnesota Vikings uniforms, which is hilarious to me. Now, the name, maybe you could make an argument they're very similar, but
Green Bay should have tried harder.
Maybe, but Green Bay's got, what are those things called again? Oh yeah, multiple Lombardi trophies and MVPs of the league recently, where the Vikings really, why would they want to rip Minnesota off for anything other than fumbling the bag with the quarterback this offseason? What do you think, Tor? Is this some trademark infringement here?
I think it's just I'm not a fan of the Packers all white uniforms. There's still too much color on them. The arm stripes is tough, and
I
then
agree.
I don't think that their helmet translates to a white helmet very well. They have a terribly famous helmet. The Green Bay Packers helmet is as ubiquitous with football as anything else. So making that a white helmet, I think it doesn't look good. I think the Browns pulled it off well. The Bengals pulled it off well.
I like the Bengals.
Well, the Browns I really like because it kind of looks like a white chocolate Reese's peanut butter cup, and that makes me always go to the store and get
I know
one.
you're a fan of those.
But the Vikings are at least trying to actually follow the all white, where it's the lettering of Vikings above the numbers is white, where the Packers it's, hey, here's our white jersey with a white helmet, and I just don't think it translates as well. Like the Jets, if the Jets were, this would look better on the Jets screen than it does the Packers screen.
I also would give the Vikings, they did a full rehaul. Like they designed a full new uniform. And I think you're right. The Packers have white jerseys and the Packers have white pants, I believe. They just combined them and then changed the helmet up a little bit. Also, the one thing the Vikings do well is they have the matte purple helmet.
Right. When they made that change back to the matte helmet
Yes.
with the horn, stellar. And I love the big Viking on the side of the helmet. I got a lot of good fond memories of watching Chester Taylor run up and down against defenses in it. But the single horn with the matte helmet, it has been a significant upgrade.
And it's the matte white on that helmet too. They kept that similarly. So yeah, I think the Vikings one looks better here. I still think the trend, these are fine. I like the NFL getting a little bit more creative. I don't want to see them go as far as the NBA, where I know this sounds like an old man thing to say, but sometimes I turn in the NBA and I've got to look at the score because I don't know the two teams that are playing because they've changed it so much. So, but the NFL has been really uptight with we only have one helmet and all that bullshit. The trend that I still love is, what were we doing in the early 80s? What were we doing in the late 70s? Let's wear that. Yes. And maybe we punch up the colors a little bit. Like, I think the Titans blues throwbacks and the creamsicle jerseys, they seem brighter now. So they punched them up a little bit, but that is the trend that I really like. And that's why I'll never do anything but hate the Jets, because they won't go back and wear those Bill Parcells throwbacks.
They had the Jets lined up their 4 jerseys, and they're just the classics, clear every single one.
Everyone knows.
I do recall watching a Wizards Hawks game this past year for about a half a quarter, and I didn't know who was who. The Wizards were in some alternate city edition, and so were the Hawks. And I genuinely, because I guess Trae Young wasn't on the floor, I'm lost. I was completely baffled as why the DC colorway was what it was.
Who started that, where it says, was it Golden State, where they had the jerseys that said the city, and then everyone had to have the district and the land and the
Cleveland, the land. Yeah. That 2015-ish era really ushered in a new.
Do you like Los Spurs and Los Heat? Do you like those?
Kinda.
My favorite is whenever the minor league baseball teams decide that they're luchadors, or they decide that they're biscuit sandwiches.
I do like
ridiculous shit.
I do like when the Diamondbacks are Los Serpientes. Like
that's pretty cool.
That's a good one for me. But I'm a mark for a snake. That's just how it is.
Well, you'll molest the snake the second you see it. But think about that. Why you have something? Biggest problem in the world I have is when you have a really cool logo. The Defenders have a giant stupid block letter W on the side of their helmet.
Terrible.
Why don't they have Captain America's shield or a big tank or something cool? You're the Diamondbacks. There should be a giant snake somewhere on your uniform every time you play.
I know. I'm sure the lettering is easier. It's not better. And then if the Commanders were doing this whole, we're gonna kind of have some military theme to our jerseys. Put something on the helmet.
Yeah,
not
put
just
a fucking jet.
You
put
just
a fighter, like a helicopter or something. You know,
anything.
All right, let's go to the Bob Slack super chat because we need to. 1999. Thank you, Bob Slack. Santana is the best. He also somehow had better lighting in his car than Tor has in his room. Hey, you're pretty good today. It looks nice and bright in there.
We're trying, Bob.
Appreciate he's highlighting the stolen artwork that he stole from SiriusXM. It's one of my favorite things about Tor's studio. Derek Rommel said, it's more like you said in the past, they should go back to more colorful jerseys like the Oilers, not less. Vikings and Packers have 2 of the best color schemes, uniforms in the league. Why do this? I will agree there. When you think NFL football, Tor, there's hardly several franchises that have more iconic looks than the Vikings and the Packers, and they have huge history with each other. I don't necessarily think they need to go that far apart. I also think the Packers uniforms they wear on Thanksgiving are the fucking worst, where you can't even, they have the blue with the stripes and the hole in the middle. They're just god awful.
I think that a lot of these NFL uniforms are figuring out that less is more, and they're taking off a lot of these weird stripes and angles off the jerseys. And then slowly we're kind of revamping back to the classics. Like when Jacksonville released that their Jaguar shoulder logo was coming back, that became one of the better jerseys I've seen because it's a little more modernized. It's not as jumbled. It's on a nicer jersey now. And the arm stripes are sick. So if we keep on kind of working towards brighter colors, not doing a whole bunch more than that, than just letting the colors be the colors, then we might be in a good visual experience.
And while I'm tired of the gold pants discussion surrounding Washington, I do approve of the gold pants. And if you go back, our guest that we had on today, look at some of his pictures wearing the uniforms with the gold pants. Dare I say, dreamy.
And Washington has just tanked it. They have an incredibly unique, and they have a gorgeous jersey when they pull it off well. And then
look at that jersey on that picture I'm showing right now of Colt Brennan. How much better is that than the Iowa Hawkeyes black alternate jerseys they wear out there, or that Florida State jersey that they rock now?
They have, they went Arizona State. They had a top 3 colorway in the NFL. However you use it, that could be debated, but that burgundy and gold, untouchable.
Yep.
And they're bastardizing it still.
Maroon and black, if we're going to Jim Zorn this motherfucker up. Colt Brennan, autographed rookie card giveaway today. I'm going to wait for Tor to put the episode up, let people marinate on a little bit. Head on over to X right now. Go to Both Types Sports. Click follow. We're going to give one away for free each and every 5th of the month, all football season long, for the cult of Colt, keeping that alive on Both Types of Sports. Tor and I are both signature members. And it's Both Types of Sports with Shoot and Tor, football discussion on the internet.
Both types of sports with Shoot and Tor, football discussion on the internet.
This up. Do you bet on preseason games, young Gigantor?
Yes, I am a degenerate.
I do too.
I will happily bet on a preseason game and still get equally as angry. I'm excited to lose my ass gambling on the NFL this season, like I always do.
I saw Evan from Evan and Sarah at Monk's Barbecue chasing halftime spreads for the fucking Hall of Fame game with the Bears and the Texans, and then getting apoplectic because of the rain delay, and he wasn't going to hit the over in the second half of the game. Like, you are a degenerate, sir. You need to go to some meetings.
We're back.
That's a bit much. All right, very good. Tor, thank you so much, bud. Great episode today. Really fun.
Of course. Thank you to Charles Cooch, Spider Clamp, Brock Sampson, Rick Austin, and Bob Slack for the in-show donations today.
Do you know how long it would have taken? Do you realize that Jim Jester would have gone into his grave never realizing that it would be a good thing for him to do to thank the Super Chatters? I really do. It's the little things. You bailed out of a real fun bet this week, Tor, but that makes up for a lot of it right there. It really does. Yes, thank you to everyone in the Super Chats. Please to be subscribing on iTunes and Spotify. We do a show at least once a week, and we're looking forward to this season. All right? We still need an outro, don't we?
Yes.
All right. Just wave. Just wave.